Welcome to Women of Worth, where we inspire and empower women to live their best lives. Today, we're exploring a lifestyle that's more than just a trend. It's a pathway to mental clarity and peace. Minimalism. Have you ever felt overwhelmed by your busy schedule, cluttered spaces, or constant demands? You're not alone. For many women, juggling multiple roles and responsibilities can lead to burnout and emotional exhaustion. But what if I told you there's a way to simplify your life, reduce stress, and focus on what truly matters? That's the power of minimalism. In this episode, we'll uncover the science behind how clutter affects your mind and emotions. Share real-life stories of women who've embraced minimalism and provide actionable strategies to help you start your own minimalist journey. From decluttering your home to simplifying your schedule and letting go of emotional baggage, we've got it all covered. So, grab your favorite drink, find a quiet spot, and get ready for a conversation that could transform your life. And before we dive in, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to our channel, and hit the bell icon to stay updated with our latest episodes. We'd also love to hear from you. What's one area of your life you'd like to simplify? Let us know in the comments below. Let's embrace simplicity and discover the mental peace that comes with letting go.
Hey everyone, welcome to our deep dive all about minimalism. And, we're focusing on women today, specifically how decluttering can lead to more mental peace.
Yeah.
And I think this is something that's really relevant. We're all juggling so much these days, careers, families, trying to improve ourselves constantly.
Right.
It's no wonder that things get cluttered.
Yeah.
Not just our homes and our spaces, but our minds and our emotions.
Absolutely. And it's so interesting because I think we often have this misconception about what clutter actually is. We picture, the overflowing closet or that junk drawer that we're afraid to open.
Right. The one we all have.
Exactly. But I think it's so important to recognize that clutter can also be mental and emotional. And I think that's something that women in particular experience a lot.
Oh, for sure. For sure.
That never-ending to-do list that's constantly swirling in your head, or those unresolved conflicts or those feelings that we just haven't quite processed yet. That's clutter too.
Yeah, it really is.
And it can have a real impact on our well-being.
So we're talking about the physical stuff, the mental overload, and then, like you said, those lingering emotional burdens. But what does that actually do to us?
Right.
Is it just a matter of feeling overwhelmed, or is there a deeper impact happening?
Yeah, that's a great question. And, research is actually showing us that it goes way deeper than just feeling overwhelmed.
Okay.
There was a study in 2016 published in Environmental Psychology, and it showed a direct link between physical clutter and increased cortisol levels.
Cortisol, that's our stress hormone.
Exactly, the stress hormone. And essentially, this means that the more clutter we have in our physical environment, the more our brains are actually primed for stress and anxiety.
So it's not just in our heads. It's our environment is literally triggering a stress response.
Exactly. It can really impact us on a physiological level.
Wow, that's wild.
It is. And, another study that was published in Neuroscience Letters in 2011, it actually took it a step further. They found that clutter actually competes for our attention and can actually lead to decreased cognitive performance.
So that feeling of trying to work at a messy desk.
Exactly.
When you're just oh, my brain is everywhere.
Yes. And it's because your attention is being pulled in so many different directions.
Yeah.
It makes it really difficult to focus.
It makes total sense. And I'm thinking of Amanda, actually, when you were talking about that.
Okay.
She's a writer, and she was really struggling to meet deadlines. And her workspace was just overflowing with books and papers.
Oh, yeah.
And she was just constantly distracted.
I can imagine.
But she said that after she decluttered her workspace, it was like this mental fog lifted, and she could think more clearly. Her writing flowed better, and she was actually enjoying her work again.
That's fantastic. And, that's a perfect example of how a minimalist approach can actually free up those cognitive resources and allow us to focus on what truly matters.
Yeah.
For sure. And there's even research on reward systems in the brain that show that getting rid of clutter can trigger the release of dopamine.
Ooh, dopamine. Now that's the good stuff. That's the feel-good hormone.
Exactly. So not only can decluttering reduce stress, it can actually make us feel good.
Okay, that's a good incentive. I like that.
It is. And we've seen this time and time again with so many women. I'm thinking of Clara.
Okay.
She was a single mom who was feeling totally overwhelmed with her family's schedule and all the stuff they had accumulated.
Yeah. Being a single mom is a lot.
It is. It's a lot to manage. And so she decided to simplify their routines and declutter their home.
Okay.
And the impact was incredible. She said she felt so much calmer, more in control, and more present with her children.
Wow. So it's like she literally created space for more joy and connection by just getting rid of the excess.
Exactly. And, it's not just about feeling better. It's about functioning better, too. I'm thinking about Sophie. She's an entrepreneur.
Okay.
And she was juggling multiple projects.
Mm-hmm.
And her energy and her focus were just totally depleted. But after she decluttered her workspace and her schedule,
Mm-hmm.
she was able to work more efficiently and she was making better decisions.
Amazing.
And she even said that she felt more creative and innovative.
Wow. So it's not just about clearing physical space. It's like clearing mental space to allow for better thinking and decision making.
Absolutely. It's about creating an environment that really supports your well-being and helps you to kind of show up as your best self.
That's a great way to put it. It's not just about aesthetics. It's about creating a space that really nourishes your mind and spirit.
Exactly. And that's why, tackling that physical clutter is often one of the first steps in this journey.
Makes sense. But where do we even start? I mean, it can feel so overwhelming.
Right. And that's why it's so important to start small.
Okay. So don't try to do the whole house in a weekend.
No, definitely not.
Okay. Good to know.
Maybe just choose one room or even just start with a drawer.
Okay.
I'm thinking of Julia. She was a teacher who was feeling overwhelmed by her overflowing closet. And so she decided to just start with her sock drawer. She got rid of all those mismatched socks, the ones with holes in them.
Yeah.
And, just that simple act gave her a sense of accomplishment that motivated her to keep going.
I love that because it shows that even a tiny step can make a difference.
Absolutely. And, I think for those initial decluttering decisions,
Yeah.
the 1-year rule can be really helpful.
Oh, yeah. If you haven't used it in a year, you probably don't need it.
Exactly. And it really highlights a key aspect of minimalism, which is letting go of what no longer serves you. And, this doesn't just apply to physical possessions, but also to our schedules and our commitments.
Ooh. So it sounds like there's a lot more to this decluttering journey than just our homes.
Absolutely. And that's actually where we'll pick up in our next segment when we talk about how to simplify our schedules and reclaim our time for the things that truly matter.
Sounds good. Can't wait to dive into that. So we've made a start on tackling the physical clutter in our lives, but like you were saying, minimalism goes way beyond just our homes.
It really does. It's about simplifying every aspect of our lives. And, a big one for a lot of women is our schedules.
Well, for sure. And I think our culture kind of glorifies busyness. We're supposed to be doing it all and saying yes to everything.
Absolutely. And, that can lead to our calendars just being jam-packed with commitments that leave us feeling totally drained and just overwhelmed.
Yeah, I think a lot of women especially can relate to that. We're expected to be super women juggling work, family social obligations, and then trying to find time for ourselves.
It's a lot. And, research in occupational health psychology is actually showing us that this constant busyness can be really detrimental to our well-being.
Okay, so there's actual science behind this feeling of being overwhelmed.
Yeah, there have been studies that have linked overcommitment to increased stress, burnout, and even decreased job satisfaction.
That makes total sense. But how do we break free from that always on mentality? How do we actually start simplifying our schedules?
Well, I think mindful awareness is key.
Okay.
It starts with actually getting real with yourself and listing out all of your commitments.
Okay, so everything: work, meetings, social events, volunteer activities, the kids stuff.
All of it, literally everything that's taking up space in your calendar.
Okay, got it.
Then you can take a step back and really assess, ask yourself, does this commitment actually align with my values?
Okay.
Does it bring me joy? Does it contribute to my overall well-being?
I like that.
And if the answer is no, it might be time to, politely decline or maybe delegate.
That makes sense. But saying no can be hard.
Oh, it can be really hard, especially when we feel obligated or we're worried about, letting people down.
Exactly. Like, I don't want to disappoint anyone.
Right. But remember, saying no to something that drains you is actually saying yes to something that nourishes you.
I like that.
You have a finite amount of time and energy.
Yeah, for sure.
And by saying yes to everything, you're basically scattering your resources and diluting your impact.
That's a good way to look at it.
But when you consciously choose where you invest your time and energy, you can create a life that is so much more fulfilling and impactful.
Makes sense. And this reminds me of Emma, actually. She's a stay-at-home mom, and she was feeling totally burnt out.
Yeah.
Volunteering at her kids' school, running errands for everyone. And she just felt like she was constantly on the go, but never really accomplishing anything meaningful.
Right. So she was busy, but not necessarily productive.
Exactly. And so she decided to step back from some of her volunteer commitments and focus on activities that she genuinely enjoyed.
Like what?
She loves gardening, and she really wanted to spend more quality time with her family. And she said it was like this huge weight had been lifted.
It's amazing how freeing that can be.
Yeah, she had more time and energy for herself and for the things that she loved.
And that's the beauty of simplifying our schedules. It creates space for that joy and fulfillment.
It really does. And I think it's not just about saying no to commitments, but also being mindful of how we spend our time, even in those little moments.
Absolutely. So things like, checking email less often or limits on social media can make a big difference.
Yeah, that's where that idea of digital minimalism comes.
Exactly. And, our devices are designed to keep us hooked. It's so easy to get sucked into that vortex of constant notifications.
It's
social media scrolling, information overload.
By the end of the day, I feel like my brain is fried from all the input.
I totally get it. So what are some practical ways that we can kind of embrace this idea of digital minimalism?
Yeah, because it can feel really overwhelming to even think about disconnecting.
I know it can, but I think one of the simplest but most powerful steps is to just turn off those notifications.
All right.
Those constant pings and alerts are literally designed to hijack our attention,
They really are.
pulling us away from whatever we're doing and creating this sense of urgency and distraction.
Oh, I've tried that before. And it's amazing how much calmer I feel when my phone isn't constantly buzzing.
Right. It's like creating a little oasis of peace and stillness in the middle of all that digital chaos.
I love that.
And, you can also try setting specific times to check email and social media instead of constantly being reactive.
Okay, that's a good tip.
And here's a challenge, try deleting any apps that you find yourself mindlessly scrolling through. If they're not adding value to your life, why give them space on your phone?
It's so true. And you know what? I've actually been trying to implement a digital detox on weekends.
Oh, nice. Tell me more about that.
Yeah, so I put my phone away for a few hours each day.
Wow.
And it's amazing how much more present I feel with my family
That's great.
and how much more I enjoy just simple activities like reading or going for a walk.
That's wonderful. And, it highlights such an important point. Digital minimalism is not about disconnecting entirely. It's about creating a healthier and more balanced relationship with technology.
Yeah, it's about using technology in a way that supports our well-being instead of detracting from it.
Exactly. And, this actually brings us to another important area for decluttering.
Okay, I'm intrigued. What's that?
Our relationships.
Our relationships. Okay, so just like we can have clutter in our homes and our schedules, we can also have clutter in our relationships.
Exactly. And, often these are the relationships that we feel obligated to maintain,
Yeah.
even if they're no longer serving us.
Okay, so we're talking about relationships that drain our energy, leave us feeling depleted, or just don't align with our values.
Exactly. And, it could be a friend who's constantly negative.
Right.
Or a family member who's always critical, or even a work colleague who just loves to gossip.
Oh, yeah. I think we've all experienced those kinds of relationships.
Right. And they can be tough to navigate, especially when there's guilt or obligation involved.
Yeah, for sure. But how do we know when it's time to step back from a relationship?
Well, I think it starts with tuning into your feelings.
Okay.
Notice how you feel before, during, and after you interact with this person. Do you feel energized and uplifted, or do you feel drained and depleted?
Oh, that's good.
Do you feel supported and respected, or judged and criticized?
Wow. So we're really paying attention to those subtle cues that our bodies are giving us.
Exactly. Our bodies are wise, and they often send us signals when something's not quite right. And if your relationship is consistently leaving you feeling drained or negative, it might be time to reevaluate its place in your life.
That makes sense. But what if it's a relationship that we can't easily walk away from, like with a family member or a coworker?
Even in those situations, we can still create healthy boundaries.
Boundaries. So what are those exactly?
Yeah, boundaries are essentially guidelines for how we want to be treated and how much we're willing to give in a relationship. And it's important to remember that setting boundaries is not selfish.
It's actually an act of self-respect and self-care.
It's about prioritizing our own well-being.
Exactly. And, sometimes setting boundaries might mean limiting contact with that person or, declining certain requests or even just having a difficult conversation about how their behavior is impacting you.
So it's about being assertive and communicating our needs and our limits.
It is, and it's about protecting our emotional well-being, just as we would protect our physical health.
I love that. And this reminds me of Lily. She was struggling with a friendship that had become really one-sided. She was always the one initiating contact, and her friend was constantly complaining and just dumping all of her problems on her.
Oh, yeah, that can be draining.
It was. And so after a lot of soul searching, Lily decided to have an honest conversation with her friend about how she was feeling.
Brave of her.
It was. And, she explained that she valued their friendship, but that she needed more balance and reciprocity.
That's so important.
And you know what? Her friend was actually really receptive.
Yeah, she admitted that she had been going through a tough time and hadn't realized how her behavior was affecting Lily. And they were able to talk things through, set some healthy boundaries, and their friendship actually became stronger as a result.
That's wonderful. And, it's such a great example of how honest communication and boundary setting can actually transform relationships for the better.
It really is. So it's not always about ending relationships. It's about creating healthier and more fulfilling dynamics within those relationships.
Exactly. And, sometimes the most important relationship to declutter is the one we have with ourselves.
Oh, it's deep.
We often carry around so much emotional baggage, past regrets, limiting beliefs, negative self-talk, and all of that clutter weighs us down and prevents us from living fully and joyfully.
So true. So how do we start to declutter that internal landscape?
Well, that's where mindfulness and self-compassion come in, and that's actually what we'll be exploring in our final segment.
Oh, perfect. I can't wait to learn more about that.
Me too.
All right, so we're back for our final segment on minimalism and how it can help women find more mental peace.
Yes, and we've talked about decluttering our physical spaces, our schedules, and even our relationships.
Yeah, and I feel like now we're getting into the really deep stuff, the internal stuff.
Exactly. We tend to accumulate so much mental and emotional clutter, those past regrets, negative self-talk, limiting beliefs.
Oh, yeah.
And it can weigh on us just as heavily as any physical clutter.
For sure.
It can affect our stress levels, our mood, even our overall well-being.
It's true. You can have a perfectly organized home, a super streamlined schedule, and still feel burdened by all that internal noise.
Absolutely.
So how do we even begin to tackle this emotional clutter? It feels so intangible compared to cleaning out a closet or something.
Right. Well, one of the most powerful tools I found for addressing emotional clutter is mindfulness.
Mindfulness. Okay, so what is that exactly? Is it like meditation?
It can be a form of meditation, but, it doesn't have to be as esoteric as it might sound.
Okay, good, because I'm not sure I'm ready to sit on a mountaintop and chant.
You don't have to.
Okay, good.
Mindfulness is really just about paying attention to the present moment without judgment. It's about noticing our thoughts and feelings as they come up, acknowledging them, and then letting them go without getting swept away by them.
So instead of getting caught up in that spiral of worry or self-criticism, we're learning to kind of observe those thoughts and feelings with a sense of detachment.
Exactly. It's like watching clouds drift by in the sky. They come and go, but the sky itself remains vast and unchanging.
Okay, I like that analogy.
In the same way, our thoughts and feelings are transient, but our true nature, our essence, remains untouched.
That's a powerful thought.
And when we practice mindfulness, we create space between ourselves and our thoughts.
Okay.
Which allows us to respond to situations with more clarity and wisdom rather than just reacting from a place of fear or negativity.
So it's about shifting from that reactive mode to a more responsive mode.
Exactly. And, there's a growing body of research that shows that mindfulness practices can have a profound impact on our brains and bodies.
Really? So it's not just a feel-good practice, there's actual science behind it.
Yes, studies have shown that regular mindfulness meditation can actually reduce activity in the amygdala.
The amygdala, isn't that the part of the brain that processes fear and stress?
It is, while also increasing activity in the prefrontal cortex, which is the area associated with executive function, self-regulation, and emotional well-being.
So we're literally rewiring our brains for more peace and calm.
Exactly. And the beauty of mindfulness is that it can be incorporated into everyday activities.
Oh, that's good because I don't have a ton of time to just sit around meditating.
You don't have to, you can practice mindfulness while you're walking, eating, washing dishes, interacting with others.
So it's about bringing that present moment awareness to everything we do.
Exactly. And here is a simple practice you can try.
Okay.
Take a few moments each day to just focus on your breath. Notice the sensation of the breath entering and leaving your body. If your mind wanders, just gently guide it back to the breath. That's it.
It sounds so simple.
It is, but it can have a profound impact on calming your nervous system and cultivating a sense of inner peace.
Like a mini meditation you can do anywhere, anytime. I love it.
Exactly. And another powerful tool for decluttering our minds and hearts is gratitude.
Gratitude. Oh, yeah. I've heard a lot about that.
When we focus on what we're grateful for, we shift our attention away from what we lack.
Makes sense.
And we cultivate this sense of abundance and contentment.
It's like that saying, what you focus on expands. If we're constantly dwelling on what's missing in our lives, we're just going to feel more dissatisfied and unhappy.
Right. But when we make a conscious effort to appreciate the good things, even the small things, it can really shift our perspective and create a more positive experience.
It's like choosing to focus on the good stuff instead of the bad stuff.
Exactly. And there's a lot of research that supports this. Studies have shown that practicing gratitude can actually increase happiness, improve sleep, strengthen our relationships, and even boost our immune systems.
So it's not just about feeling good. It's actually good for our physical health, too.
Exactly. And one of the simplest ways to cultivate gratitude is to keep a gratitude journal.
Oh, yeah, I've heard of that.
Each day, just take a few moments to write down 3 things you're grateful for.
Okay.
They can be big or small, from the roof over your head to a delicious cup of coffee.
I like that.
The key is to really savor those feelings of appreciation.
I've also heard that writing by hand can actually enhance those benefits. Something about the physical act of putting pen to paper.
I think there's something to that.
Okay, so gratitude journal check.
And, another powerful aspect of minimalist living is learning to let go of perfectionism.
Oh, perfectionism. That's a big one.
It is so many women, myself included, struggle with this need to do everything perfect.
Oh, yeah. Perfect home, the perfect career, the perfect family. It's exhausting.
It is. We set these impossibly high standards for ourselves, and then we inevitably fall short and feel like failures.
It's a never-ending cycle.
It is. And minimalism invites us to challenge that need for perfection and to embrace imperfection.
So it's about giving ourselves permission to be human flaws and all.
Exactly. And you know what? This can be a real game changer.
How so?
When we release the grip of perfectionism, we free up so much mental and emotional energy.
Yeah, because we're not constantly striving for this unattainable ideal.
Exactly. And that allows us to focus on what truly matters, connecting with loved ones, pursuing our passions, and just enjoying the journey.
That's a beautiful thought. And it reminds me of Natalie.
Oh, yeah. What about her?
She's a lawyer, and she was struggling with burnout.
I can imagine that's a high-pressure job.
It is. She was working long hours, striving to be the best at everything she did, but it was taking a toll on her health and her happiness.
I see. So how did minimalism help her?
She realized that her perfectionism was actually a big part of the problem.
Right.
And so she started implementing minimalist principles into her life. She decluttered her workspace, simplified her schedule, and most importantly, she started letting go of that need to be perfect.
That's amazing.
She started prioritizing self-care, spending more time with her family, and pursuing hobbies that she had neglected for years.
Wow. So how did that impact her?
It was a total transformation. She said she felt lighter, happier, and more fulfilled than she had in years.
That's incredible.
She was no longer weighed down by that pressure of perfectionism, and she was finally able to enjoy her life both personally and professionally.
That's a beautiful example of how embracing imperfection can be so liberating.
It really is.
And it highlights a key message of minimalism.
What's that?
It's not about deprivation. It's about creating space for what truly matters. It's about simplifying our lives so that we can focus on the things that bring us joy, connect us to our purpose, and nourish our souls.
That's like a powerful way to think about it. It's not about having less. It's about having more of what matters.
Exactly. And remember, minimalism is a journey, not a destination. It's about finding what works for you, experimenting, and making adjustments along the way.
There's no one right way to do it.
Exactly. It's about creating a life that feels authentic and aligned with your values.
I love that. And I think for anyone listening who's feeling inspired to embrace minimalism, Start small.
Yes, definitely.
Choose one area of your life that feels cluttered, whether it's your physical space, your schedule, your relationships, your mental and emotional landscape, and just begin to simplify.
Maybe it's decluttering a drawer, saying no to a commitment that doesn't energize you, or just taking 5 minutes each day to practice mindfulness.
Exactly. Every small step you take is a step towards creating a more peaceful, fulfilling, and joyful life.
I love that.
Well, this has been such an inspiring deep dive into the world of minimalism. It's clear that it's so much more than just getting rid of stuff.
It really is.
It's about creating a more intentional and fulfilling way of being.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for sharing your wisdom with us today.
It was my pleasure.
And to everyone listening, we hope you feel inspired to embrace minimalism and create space for what truly matters in your life.
We do.
And remember, this conversation doesn't end here.
Right.
We'd love to hear from you. Share your thoughts, your experiences with minimalism, your challenges, your triumphs in the comments below. Let's keep this conversation going.
Yes, let's support each other on this journey towards a simpler, more joyful, and more meaningful life.
I love it. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this episode with anyone who might benefit from a little more minimalism in their lives.
Great idea.
Until next time, happy simplifying.